Hello and welcome. Tonight, double trouble for Senator Iyorchia Ayu as Benue State High Court restrains him from parading himself as PDP National Chairman following his suspension from the party by his ward. INEC to conduct all outstanding governorship, national and state houses of assembly supplementary elections on April the 15th, 2023. Police arrest over 700 persons suspected to have engaged in various electoral infractions in the 2023 general elections. IGP warns politicians against undermining public peace.
And on business news, World Bank says average potential global economic growth will slump to a three-decade low of 2.2% per year through 2030.
On sports news tonight, Super Eagles beat Guinea-Bissau in the return leg of their Africa Cup of Nations qualifying campaign to regain leadership of Group A with 9 points.
And from Abuja, 4 persons, including 2 personnel of the NSCDC, killed after gunmen attacked them while monitoring critical national infrastructure in Ngokbala local government area of Imo State.
And in international news from London, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has shared a post on Twitter calling on protesters on all sides to behave responsibly and refrain from violence.
And it appears there's more trouble for the PDP national chairman as the Benue High Court sitting in Makurdi, the state capital, has restrained him from parading himself as national chairman of the party. Justice Wilfred Pochi granted the order restraining Mr. Ayu and the PDP from taking further actions pending the hearing of the matter on April the 17th, 2023. According to the plaintiff, Mr. Tahide Utan, following the suspension of Mr. Ayu by his ward ESCO yesterday, it is wrong for him to remain in the office as PDP national chairman and further disunite the party.
I'm sure you are aware of the facts of the matter as it concerns us here in Benue. We naturally expected that out of the performance that we have just recorded as a party in Benue, we naturally expected, like it's done in Senate climbs, for the former national chairman, Senator Iyorchia Ayu, to have stepped aside honorably because he wasn't able to lead the party to victory and allow the party to move on without him. Unfortunately, he has refused to display that kind of honor. So I thought it wise to approach the court to see how to agree with the position of his ward, who only 24 hours ago had suspended him from the party. Our expectation is that you cannot be the national chairman of a party that you are not a member of. Unfortunately, or should I say fortunately for us as a party, Iyorchia Ayu is no longer a member of the People's Democratic Party as declared by his ward. And under normal circumstances, he has no reason whatsoever to continue as national chairman of our party.
Meanwhile, the PDP national chairman, Iyorchia Ayu, has dismissed his suspension for alleged anti-party activities by his ward in Benue State. In a statement today by his media aide, Simon Imobo Swam, Mr. Ayu argues that the ward lacks the powers to suspend him, claiming that some members of the ESCO are only being teleguided by political gamblers to cause mischief. He cited Article 57, subsection 7 of the PDP Constitution, which prohibits any organ of the party or executive committee of the party at the ward or state level from taking any disciplinary measure against any member of the party's National Executive Committee. Quote, the purported suspension is therefore an exercise in futility as it derives its strength majorly from gross illiteracy, ignorance, gambling and desperation. It has only mischief, drama and propaganda value. According to him, the suspension letter itself is fraudulent as he alleged that the signatures of the ward executives were forged or obtained under duress. Well, staying with the People's Democratic Party, the party says it has credible evidence that there is a fresh plot by the All Progressives Congress to have already declared results cancelled in local government areas where elections have been concluded and declared in Adamawa State. The National Publicity Secretary of the party, Mr. Debo Ologunaba, made this allegation today, claiming that it is part of the plot to facilitate the manipulation of results in favor of the APC candidate. The PDP cautions against tampering with the results as declared at the polling units where elections have been concluded. He also reacted to the suspension of the PDP national chairman, saying the issue is yet to be tabled before the party's leadership.
It has come to the knowledge of our party that the APC and its candidates, having realized that they cannot defeat Governor Fintiri in the 69 polling units, given his popularity and determination of the people, are now putting pressure on INEC to alter already collated and declared results in other polling units where no cases of malpractice or disruption of election took place. The PDP allows the people of Adamawa State of fresh plots by the APC. It hires agents and compromise staff of INEC to alter and cancel the already declared results in 21 local government areas where elections have been concluded and declared. We don't just wake up one morning and begin to respond to the situation. When we get those information, we'll consider that. And that the NWC will do that. That's what we do. We don't rush into judgment. We are not preemptive. We look at the documents. There's a release by the chairman. There's his purported letter right there. We look at it, and that's what organization that has system do. So it's not, I won't come here and give you half truth. So you give me the opportunity of reviewing that and come back to you when the party takes a position.
And the River State Governor, Nyesom Wike, has been reacting to the suspension of the PDP national chairman, where he says it is the beginning of a new fight in the party. Governor Wike, who hailed the decision of the PDP in Ayu's ward, blamed the suspended national chairman for the failure of the party to win elections this year. He made the remarks during the commissioning of a remodeled secondary school performed by the governor of Ebonyi State, David Mahi, who appealed to the incoming APC federal government to include Governor Wike in its administration.
Governor Nyesom Wike's series of infrastructure delivery in Rivers State is back on, and the first project to be inaugurated is the remodeled community secondary school Okoro Nodu in Obiakpo local government area. And Governor David Mahi of Ebonyi State is here to do the honors. The school, founded in 1982, was in a dilapidated state until last year when it was awarded for renovation of existing structures and construction of new classroom blocks, state-of-the-art library, core members lodge, and auditorium, among others.
The project entails one newly constructed 6 and 3 classroom blocks, one block of 2-story building containing physics, chemistry and biology lab, fully furnished library.
Your Excellencies, if you came here before now, this compound looks like an abandoned poultry farm. But today, a visit here will look like this, a mini polytechnic or a monotechnic. That is courtesy of what you have done today.
Governor Wike is pledging to commission more projects till his last day in office. He also calls for accountability among public servants.
We are here to also fulfill the promise we have made. I have told people who care, and I want Nigerians to know, the electors to know, that time has come when you must hold public officers accountable.
On the political scene, the River State governor hails the suspension of his party's national chairman, Senator Iyorchia Ayu, criticizing him over PDP's poor outing in the last elections.
I thank God when we say you should resign, you refuse to resign. Because if you are resigned, and with the colossal failure of the performance of our party, you would have said because you resigned. Thank God, God hardened their mind. You refuse to resign. And now look at the performance of the party.
The special guest, Governor Mai, commends the quality of projects in Rivers State and appeals to the president-elect to consider Governor Wike in his cabinet.
And so there is no way PC can conclude about the success of the election without mentioning Governor Wike. And they will be asking, Asiwaju Shetima to please bring Governor Wike to the core administration of the federal government. He has a lot to offer.
With the remodeling of the school, the students look forward to an excellent academic environment and experience.
The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has announced that all outstanding governorship, national and state assembly supplementary elections will take place Saturday, April the 15th, 2023. This followed a meeting of the commission in Abuja today. The governorship supplementary election will take place in Adamawa and Kebbi states, where the polls were declared inconclusive due to breaches of electoral laws that led to the cancellation of results in some polling units. INEC explains in a statement that the supplementary elections will also hold in 5 senatorial districts, 31 federal and 58 state assembly constituencies. It notes that a comprehensive list of the polling units by state, local government registration area, registered voters and permanent voter cards collected will be published on its website on or before Wednesday, the 29th of March, 2023. To election security, not less than 781 suspects have been arrested for various electoral offences during the 2023 general elections. The Inspector General of Police, Mr. Usman Alkali Baba, made this known in Abuja while meeting with senior police officers from the 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory at the force's headquarters. Mr. Alkali Baba also warned politicians against making unsavory comments capable of undermining public peace. Our correspondent, Emperor Simon, has more.
The Inspector General of Police, Mr. Usman Alkali Baba, is meeting with senior police officers from across the country at the police headquarters Abuja to review the performance of the police during the 2023 general elections. The elections witnessed violence in some parts of the country, including disruption of voting, ballot snatching, voter intimidation, and attack on security agencies, including the reported attack on some personnel of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC) in Kaduna State. The Nigeria Election Violence Tracker shows that between February 23 and March 20, 2023, over 200 violent events were recorded with over 600 fatalities.
For prosecution in accordance with the Electoral Act 2022.
However, the Inspector General of Police says some arrests have been made.
Feedbacks so far received across the 36 states of the Federation and the FCT indicates that a total of 489 major electoral infractions leading to the arrest of a total of 781 offenders were recorded nationally, both during the presidential and the National Assembly elections and the governorship and the State House of Assembly elections. While not less than 66 firearms of various descriptions were recovered from electoral adversaries.
Besides the violence recorded during the elections, the outcome of the polls has continued to generate controversies in some parts of the country, including the nation's capital, as groups and political parties stage protests. The police are concerned about comments being made by some political actors.
I must firmly warn that the Nigeria Police and other security agencies shall not tolerate the resort to incitement or any act designed to threaten our national security. They are therefore advised in the strongest possible terms to henceforth draw back on current attempts to engender tension within the national security space to avoid attracting appropriate law enforcement response.
The police also intend to use this meeting to examine their policing strategies as part of efforts to enhance security in the country. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
In part two, after the break, former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson advocates stronger mutually benefiting relationship between Nigeria and his country. That's in a moment. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Double trouble for Senator Iyorchia Ayu as Benue State High Court restrains him from parading himself as PDP National Chairman following his suspension from the party by his ward. INEC to conduct all outstanding governorship, national and state houses of assembly supplementary elections on April the 15th, 2023. Police arrest over 700 persons suspected to have engaged in various electoral infractions in the 2023 general elections. IGP warns politicians against undermining public peace. And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu shares a post on Twitter calling protesters on all sides to behave responsibly and refrain from violence. The convener of the Big Tent, Professor Pat Utomi, is calling for the prosecution of public officials who engaged in election malpractice in the just concluded presidential and state elections. According to the professor of political economy, prosecuting them will serve as a deterrent in future elections. He warned that doing otherwise will encourage others to engage in such unwholesome practice and worsen the electoral system. He was speaking with journalists in Lagos.
There is no consequence management in Nigeria. If there was consequence management, 3-4 governors in jail will prevent the next set of governors from doing what these ones did. But if we don't insist now, the next elections will be worse than this one. This is why we will take the names of these public officials. They're not just governors alone, there are many. Thank God the Americans are asking us to bring their names. Thank God the British are saying they want those names to go out. Femi Falana and I had extensive discussion of this even before the Americans and British began to make small noises. And Femi said, look, we have enough laws in our country to prosecute these people. We want lawyers to volunteer to come forward to prosecute these people. We'll prosecute them here. We'll take their names to international criminal courts. But unless we jail many of them, elections will always be bad dream in Nigeria.
Meanwhile, disagreements arising from the outcome of the elections are yet to die down as civil society groups under the aegis of the Free Nigeria movement continue their protests against the result of the presidential election. The convener of the movement, Mr. Moses Paul, who led members of the movement through the streets of Abuja in a peaceful protest, says the exercise had so many irregularities. However, some support groups of the All Progressives Congress are calling on the opposition parties not to truncate the nation's democracy with their calls for the cancellation of the general elections.
Hand in hand, members of the Free Nigeria movement take to the streets of the nation's capital as they continue their protest against the outcome of the 2023 presidential election. Security operatives are on the ground to prevent a breakdown of law and order as the groups take their demand to the British High Commission and the Embassy of the United States of America.
Our country needs healing. Yes. It will be counterproductive to allow a fraudulent process to succeed, as fraud will eternally birth fraud.
The protesters take to their knees, singing songs of solidarity to reiterate their faith in Nigeria as they vow to continue to stage the protest until their demands are met. In a counter-protest, members of the All Progressives Congress support groups take to the streets as well, starting from the Unity Fountain. They maintain that the outcome of the presidential election is a reflection on the wishes of Nigerians.
As you can see, virtually the whole youths that are here, everybody voted, and nobody was forced to vote for anybody. Or was anybody forced to vote? No. Nobody was us to vote anybody. You voted your choice, I voted my choice, you voted your choice.
I would like to assure all Nigerians that by 29th May 2023, Aswaj Ahmed Bola Tinubu will be sworn as the president-elect. Any attempt by anyone would not be tolerated. It was a free and fair election, and everybody is a witness to that.
The support groups are also vowing to continue their solidarity march until the president-elect is sworn in on the 29th of May 2023.
Away from electoral matters, former United Kingdom Prime Minister Boris Johnson is in Nigeria and has made a case for a stronger, mutually benefiting relationship between Nigeria and his country. Mr. Johnson stated this while speaking at the 16th Osigwe Ayam Osigwe lecture series, which held in Lagos today. The lecture series also had in attendance other thought leaders who share their experiences and perspectives on human capital development in the country. Our correspondent Dari Doru has more.
It's a high-profile event attended by national and global leaders. The caliber of guests on and off the podium speaks volume. Former Secretary General of the Commonwealth, Chief Emeka Anyaoku, President-elect Bola Tinubu, represented by former Deputy Governor Femi Pedro, presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, represented by his deputy, Obafemi Hamzat, and other important personalities are in attendance.
It is important to note at the start of the proceedings here today that the lecture series is not just an adventure in intellectual rhapsody. It is not a memorial escapade to glorify an individual. No, it is an adventure within the bounds of the submission of Emmanuel Onyechere Oshigwe Anyam Oshigwe on how we can vastly realize a better world order.
The Lagos State Deputy Governor believes the topic is a clarion call and a challenge that must be taken up by all. He enjoins Nigerians to be patriotic, avoid actions and statements that may demarcate the country.
As a philosopher once said, the best way to kill the brain is to talk without evidence. And as a people in our country, it is also important that we don't continue to demean our country, always criticizing everything that is done without providing solutions.
For elder statement, former Secretary General of the Commonwealth, Chief Anyaoku, countries and leaders must build on the comprehensive welfare of the people to develop their citizens' potentials.
I believe that if we are to effectively pursue the theme of this 16th session of the Anyam Osigwe lecture series, consideration of the comprehensive welfare of the people should be the bedrock of policies and actions by politicians and leaders across the world.
Former United Kingdom's Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who is still a 7th member of the British Parliament, takes the stage. He speaks on the diversity and mobility of ideas as the bedrock of developing talents and unleashing potential.
And I know that you are building wonderful mass transit systems and a metro. How's it going? Fantastic. What I want to say to you today, in an absolutely unashamed way, as the former chairman of Transport for London, let's do it together. When I was mayor of London, thank you, Anyam Osigwe family. When I was mayor of London, I increased the capacity on the tube by about 30%, and I built Crossrail, the Elizabeth line, the biggest engineering project in Europe. So I know you're doing the first leg, but let's do the rest of it together. Don't do it with the Spanish, don't do it with the French, don't do it with the Chinese. Do it with Transport for London. Nigeria could be a renewable superpower as well as a massive producer of oil and gas.
Mr. Johnson is one of the world leaders who have been invited for the lecture series to share their thoughts on various issues of global importance with the benefits of their experiences and perspectives. Dari Idu, Channels Television News.
And we're off to Abuja for more stories. Makwe Yusuf is standing by. Lovely to see you, Makwe.
Same here, Millicent. But sadly, the story that we have isn't so pleasant, as we're off to the southeast now, where 4 persons, including 2 personnel of the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, Imo State Command, have been killed by bandits in Obiango, an Ungo-Okpala local government area of the state. The NSCDC staff were said to have been on a routine monitoring of some critical national assets and infrastructure in the area when they were attacked in the early hours of today. Reacting to the incident, the state commandant of the NSCDC, Mr. Sunday Matthew Ovie, told journalists in Owerri, the state capital, that the command will leave no stone unturned in ensuring that the perpetrators are found. And to legal matters, the Federal Capital Territory High Court here in Abuja has ordered a temporary block of funds in 4 banks operated by the Oyo State government and its agencies, pending when it can show cause on why the monies are not to be credited to some judgment creditors. The court issued the order while ruling on a motion ex parte for garnishee order filed by the ex-chairpersons and councillors led by Mrs. Basharu Majid, Bosun Ajunwo, and Idris Okushesi. It ordered the affected banks to show cause, while the order should not be made absolute. The funds, according to the court filings, are to settle the outstanding balance of over 3 billion naira from the judgment debt owed some former local government chairpersons and councillors sacked on the 29th of May 2019 before the end of their tenure by Governor Seyi Makinde. The garnishee proceedings, initiated for the chairpersons and councillors by their lawyer, Musibao Adetumbi, is the execution of a judgment they got against the governor and 6 others from the Supreme Court on the 7th of May 2021. Well, we'll take a break. Still ahead on the news at 10, World Bank says average potential global economic growth will slump to a 3-decade low of 2.2% per year through 2030. Well, that's some business news. Do join us again. Welcome back to the news at 10. Justice Zainab Abubakar of the Federal High Court, Abuja, has remanded a journalist and publisher of an online medium, Agba Jalingo, at the Kuje Correctional Center for allegedly publishing an article that was deemed insulting to Mrs. Elizabeth Ayade, wife of the younger brother of the Cross River State Governor, Ben Ayade. Mr. Jalingo was arraigned on a 2-count charge bordering on alleged false publication intended to cause annoyance, ill will, and insult to the person of Mrs. Ayade, wife to Mr. Frank Ayade. He is alleged to have committed the offense punishable by Section 24(1)(b) of the Cybercrimes Prohibition Prevention Act 2015. Mr. Jalingo pleaded not guilty to both charges. While adjourning the case to March the 30th this year for hearing of the bail application and May the 31st for trial, Justice Zainab Abubakar ordered that Mr. Jalingo be remanded at the Kuje Correctional Center. Now, outside the shores of Nigeria, Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo has been speaking about leadership recruitment and how Africa can still prosper in an increasingly complex world. Professor Osinbajo spoke to the crowd made up of academics, researchers, and students in a public lecture at the prestigious King's College in London this evening as part of the institution's annual Africa Week engagements.
What we have tried to do, and a bit, and I must say that we can do much better than that, is to admit people to, for instance, in my office for internships, and have several people, who work in our offices, in the president's office, in my own office. I have several people from diaspora who work in our offices. But I must say that it isn't working, at that level usually as an advisor, is not necessarily reflective of the sorts of challenges that one faces working, perhaps in industry and elsewhere. But I think that, for us who are in government, we think that it's an effective way of helping, young people who are interested in government, who are interested in seeing how the bureaucracy functions and all of that. But again, for industry and all of that, I've said, the private sector has, is possibly the only real vehicle for that kind of measure.
That's Vice President Professor Yemi Oshibajo. Back home, it's roughly 2 months to the end of the second term of the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, and the presidency is convinced that Nigerians will yearn for him when he leaves office. In an interview with Channels Television, the senior special assistant to the president on media and publicity, Mr. Garba Shehu, wondered about the level of criticisms directed at the president. On the cashless policy of the government, Mr. Shehu affirms that the initiative is desirable and therefore irreversible.
My own sense is that we as Nigerians, we don't like our leaders. There will be love at first sight. There will be honeymoon period when they come in. The honeymoon doesn't last a year. And then love is replaced by hatred. We don't like them. It is after they leave office that people will begin to say, why is this man? If he was here, ABC would not have happened. Look at how we came in 2015, and you see the glory with which, say, Mr. Jonathan is treated, is received, not only in Nigeria but in the entire continent. So people ask the question, is it the same one that Nigerians said they didn't like in 2015 and they threw him out? So we are comfortable in our hearts, in our minds. President Buhari will go, Nigerians will yearn for him. They will yearn for him when he leaves. And you mentioned this thing about money. Let me tell you, cashless is the way forward for Nigeria. All advanced nations of the world have gone cashless. Those of us who are coming behind, there are others who are well ahead of us, even among the developing countries. So is the way to go, is irreversible. The only sad thing is the people who should have been more pained were the ones who are inflicting pain on the lower segments of the society.
Well, that's all from Abuja. It's back now to you, Millicent.
Thanks, Mark. Well, still staying with that policy, in what seems like last-minute move to avert the planned nationwide strike and picketing of all branches of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, by the Nigeria Labour Congress on Tuesday, the Minister of Labour and Employment has held a closed-door meeting with the leadership of the NLC and the Governor of the Central Bank in Abuja. In a statement signed by the Director of Public Relations Unit of the Ministry of Labour, it says the Central Bank Governor told the meeting that as soon as the Apex Bank received the letter from the NLC, it took steps to address the situation, such as the disbursement of money to deposit money banks under strict supervision so as to address the problem of naira scarcity in the country. However, the NLC leadership notes that the labour movement will review the situation on Tuesday when it will meet with union heads from across the states to assess the level of availability of the naira. To other stories, Chrisland Schools Parents Association is appealing to the Lagos State government to reopen the Ikeja branch of the school after it was closed about 7 weeks ago. The state government took the action after a student, Ms. Whitney Adeniran, died under controversial circumstance during the school's sporting event. Speaking to journalists at the premises of the Ministry of Education, the chairman of the association says they really empathize with the Adenirans, but for the sake of students in terminal classes, authorities should reconsider their position.
The family of Adenirans, we will keep praying along with them.
and we'll keep giving them all the best support and encouragement we will at this critical time. It is important at this time that we have to be around here at this time to also plead with the government in line with the situation on ground, to also see a need to have the school open. But before then, I want to thank the government for the ongoing corona inquest, justice working it out, and that has been my position, and that has been my mandate for the government, and my assurance also for our co-parent, the Adenugas family, that we will not sit at ease until justice for Whitney is done, and that is our prayer, that justice for Whitney must be done. So while we pray along with the family, we also want to appeal that the government also see the need for the Year 9 and Year 12 who has a terminal exams, at least to be able to join their counterparts. While the cases on the court is still going on, the cases at the corona is still going on, parents stand for justice. This affects us. An injury to one is an injury to all.
Now to some company news. A leading Pan-African financial and investment services group, United Capital PLC, has declared the sum of ₦1.50 as dividend to its shareholders for the financial year. The chairman of the company, Professor Chika Modi, made the declaration at the company's 10th annual general meeting in Abuja.
It's the 10th annual general meeting for United Capital PLC, one of Africa's fastest growing investment management companies. Their services include asset management, investment banking, trusteeship, wealth management, consumer finance, and security trading. Gathered here are the board of directors, representatives of financial regulators, audit committee members, and the shareholders. In the outgoing financial year, the company reported an improved performance, with total revenue up by 49% year-on-year to 26.9 billion naira in the year ended 2022. The company plans to be strategic in approaching the new financial year.
Our focus is to continually increase the wealth of shareholders, and in all our key business decisions, we take that into consideration, and to align with the chair, as our business is growing, there are a lot of things that will go along with it. You just imagine where we were 5 years ago and where we are now.
United Capital PLC hopes to grow its total funds beyond the 1 trillion naira mark through product uptake and expanded distribution channels in the bid to increase the wealth of its shareholders.
2022, going in, we knew it was going to be a difficult year, and in the build-up to elections in Nigeria, major elections, typically there are challenges, and we're all familiar with the sort of economic environment we faced. But through hard work and a dint of strategic thinking, we were able to surpass the results of last year. Not only that, there's a consistent growth, but we're outperforming our peers as well, and we're very proud of that.
United Capital, when they were quoted, it's just 1.16 naira. Even for Friday, it grew to 14 naira. For an investment within 10 years, grew from 161 kobo to 14 naira. So that shows you can invest in United Capital and go and sleep.
United Capital PLC currently operates in 8 states across Nigeria and Ghana, and hopes to reach its new markets following the recent license from the Central Bank of Nigeria to operate a microfinance bank subsidiary.
Time for more business news. Here's Laddie Williams.
Thanks, Millicent. In business news, as the inauguration of the president-elect draws closer, stakeholders already join action plans for the newly elected president. One is from Nigeria's Employers Consultative Association, NECA, and they're asking the president-elect to give the opportunity to the employers as the private sector is bleeding and needs urgent reforms. And the World Bank says average potential global economic growth will slump to a 3-decade low of 2.2% per year through 2030, ushering a lost decade for the world's economy. According to the World Bank report, failure to reverse the expected broad-based slowdown in potential gross domestic product growth would have profound implications for the world's ability to tackle climate change and reduce poverty. Meanwhile, the World Bank is also watching developments in the banking sector, which covers rising interest rates and tightening financial conditions drive up the cost of borrowing for developing countries. And the equities market opens the first trading day of the week in negative territory as investors sell off telecom stocks. And John McQuarrie tells us more.
Thank you so much. Welcome to the stock market reports. Well, the floor of the Nigerian Exchange Group has been covered in red since midday and closed in the red, a very red Monday indeed, seeing that the all-share index shaved off more than 2% to close at 53,750.77, losing the 54,000 there, and then the market cap still holding on to that 29 trillion. Now, the profit-taking activity by investors led to the loss of 622 billion naira in the market. But guess what? That's to the joy of the bear. So investors feasted on the most capitalized stock, Airtel Africa. So with a volume of about 257,000, Airtel Africa moved about 364 million naira in volume. It lost 128 naira 70 kobo and closed at 1,420. MTN also contributed to that red that we saw. MTN, the second market mover today, moved about 8 million naira and in 1.9 billion in volume, lost 3 naira to close at 233. Seplat has to be in that league. It's also a major in the market today, lost 50 naira and closed at 1,150 naira. These are the guys who put the market in the red today. So when we look at the activity chart, it's a mixture. We see there the only red being the volume, but we've seen those driving the market today and having less than 2% off the all-share index on a Monday. Not a very good one, but we hope to recover before Friday. That's the stock market report. I'm Ini John McQuarrie. It's back to you.
Talk about market movers moving the market. Now let's take a look at with the rest of the news at 10.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks, Laddie. To some international news now. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris met with Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo to discuss strengthening bilateral relations as part of her three-nation tour of Africa. Ms. Harris is expected to announce a $139 million aid package for Ghana for next year as part of Washington's drive to counter growing Chinese and Russian influence on the continent. Harris's office said Washington will deploy an advisor to Ghana from its Office of Technical Assistance to help the country improve its debt sustainability and support a competitive, dynamic government debt market. Now here's Simon Pusey for more international news around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has shared a post on Twitter calling protesters on all sides to behave responsibly and refrain from violence. It's after tens of thousands of people took to the streets in anger on Sunday evening after Mr. Netanyahu fired his defense minister. Yoav Gallant had called for a pause on changes being introduced to the country's judicial system. Protesters have taken to the streets on a scale never seen before, threatening to shut down the country if Mr. Netanyahu doesn't back down. There were angry scenes in Parliament too. Here, various opposition lawmakers banging on the table and yelling shame, while others were escorted out of the hall. The governor of Mississippi has warned that more severe weather could be on the way to the U.S. state following tornadoes which killed 26 people. Governor Tate Reeves said significant risks remained in parts of the state. Hundreds of people have been displaced in the wake of the tornadoes, which tore through Mississippi and Alabama on Friday night. The mayor of one of the worst affected towns said he had lost personal friends in the disaster. Friday's tornado was the deadliest in the state of Mississippi in more than a decade. At least 25 people have died in the state, with one person confirmed dead in neighboring Alabama.
I want to personally thank President Biden and his team for very quickly signing the emergency declaration that we sent up on yesterday. Obviously, the resources that the people here in Rolling Fork and throughout Mississippi need, the help is on the way. And I think that's critically important.
Russian shelling in Sloviansk in the Donetsk region has killed 2 people and injured at least 25. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky posted a video on his social media, said to show the aftermath of the attack, showing several burning cars and smouldering debris in what appeared to be a residential area. Mr. Zelensky wrote in the post accompanying the video that Ukraine will not forgive these deaths and accused Russia of terrorism. Germany's transport network is at a near standstill as the country experiences one of the largest strikes in decades. Staff at airports, ports, railways, buses and subways walked out shortly after midnight for a 24-hour stoppage. 2 of Germany's largest unions are demanding higher wages to help their members cope with the rising cost of living. There have recently been smaller walkouts by other public servants. The so-called mega strike, as it has been dubbed in local media, has affected commuter and regional trains operated by Deutsche Bahn, Germany's national rail operator. Kenya's riot police are on the streets of the capital Nairobi in a bid to prevent protests called by the opposition over the high cost of living and alleged election malpractices. It's after the leader of Kenya's opposition was tear-gassed by police on Monday during a protest against President William Ruto and the high cost of living. Raila Odinga's convoy was repeatedly sprayed with tear gas as he addressed supporters from the sunroof of his car. And the Pirates of the Caribbean star Orlando Bloom has visited a children's centre in Kyiv.
Hello. How are you? Are we making a candle? Oh yeah. You just take one of these. It's so beautiful. You have 2 colors.
He went with the charity UNICEF, which is offering support for displaced children and their families. According to Ukraine's Prosecutor General's office, at least 465 children have been killed in the 13-month-long war.
Wow.
Sir, thank you so much. Thanks for coming. What an honor. What a real honor, sir. Nice to meet you. Such a honor.
He also met Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky and told him how inspired he'd been by the strength of the Ukrainian people.
To see the children, to see in their eyes, it's palpable, the anxiety, and yet the strength of the Ukrainian people is something that is really awe-inspiring in truth.
And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Thanks, Simon, and welcome to Sports News. The Super Eagles of Nigeria's avenged Friday's defeat in the hands of Guinea-Bissau. The Africa Cup of Nations qualified by recording a 1-0 victory against the host Guinea-Bissau to get their campaign back on track. The 3-time African champions triumph in front of Guinea-Bissau home crowd, with Moses Simon clearly converting a spot kick on the 30th minute of the first half after Bright Osai Samuel was fouled on the penalty box by defender Fali Kande. Nigeria reclaimed top spot in Group A after 4 games with 9 points. They are closely trailed by Guinea-Bissau on 7 points. Nigeria will face Sierra Leone in their next qualifying fixture in June. Now, the president of the Nigeria Football Federation, Ibrahim Gusau, has assured that 9-time African champions Nigeria will be ready to put up an excellent show when the 9th FIFA Women's World Cup final commences in Australia and New Zealand on June the 20th. Nigeria is one of the only 7 countries to have featured in every edition of the FIFA Women's World Cup since the competition was launched in 1991. He says the team will get all the needed preparations and support to excel at the tournament.
This is the price.
Chelsea have recorded an overall net loss of £121 million for 2021-2022 due to what they term extraordinary expense and loss of revenue. After sanctions were imposed on previous owner Ibrahimovic, Russian owner Ibrahimovic put the club up for sale in early March last year following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which Moscow calls a special military operation. UK government sanctioned on Abramovich had also complicated the sale process. Chelsea were not allowed to sell tickets, resulting in a loss of revenue, while their operational spend was also curtailed due to government restriction until the sale was completed at the end of May. Antonio Conte has thanked Tottenham Hotspur fans and all those at the club who shared his passion following his departure from the Premier League. The Italian left his position as sports manager by mutual consent on Sunday following 16 months in charge of the North London club. And that's it on sports. I'm Jeffrey Ozong. It's back to Millicent for the rest of the news at 10.
Thanks, Jeffrey. And the main news again. It was double trouble for Senator Iyorchia Ayu today as the Benue State High Court restrained him from parading himself as PDP national chairman following his suspension from the party by his ward. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Mwoka. Have a good night. Stay safe.